Welcome to another Superversive live stream. I am your host, Ben Wheeler, and I'm here with Yakov Merkin and Anthony Marquetta. Anthony Marquetta being my co host, and Yakov Merkin being somebody I pulled in from the street. I think he says he has a Kickstarter. I don't know. But it's a good Kickstarter, which I'm linking in the chat. It is the Kickstarter for his new light novel series, In Another World with a Magic. No, wait. Light Unto Another World, Volumes 1 through 5. A new isekai light novel series with a unique twist. And, may I compliment you, sir, a superior harem.
Yeah, well, I try to keep things visually interesting too, because light novels, as people know, do have internal arts. Also, each of these books are going to have at least four internal art pieces, because that's part of what makes that light novels a light novel. And so I wanted to have some nice visuals apart from the obvious action stuff that's going to be happening quite often.
Of course. The more art and extra stuff you put in it, the better off everything becomes. And I'm seeing some of the
Yeah,
black and white ones. It's just fantastic.
yeah, it's also easier to market like something if there's more visual aspects to it, like as opposed to just the book. We have a cover art and that's it. Like it's a lot easier when you have more art involved. That's why I think comic Kickstarters have an easier time of it in that regard because people could see it a bit more.
Absolutely. Uh, let's see. Can't hear the guest. I will turn you up.
Oh no.
Uh-uh.
That's weird. I could hear you, though. You do sound like you're, you know, speaking in a bathtub, but you sound audible.
So
Strange.
I'm turning you
However,
up.
Megabuster Shepherd has the same issue, so what do I know?
Yeah, it could be one of those things where it's like I'm at a weird part of it, so it sounds good to me, so I think it'll sound good on the input. But I've got the input all the way up, or just about. So it's like, So anyway, I've turned you up, so it's all good.
Okay.
Let's see.
Hopefully that'll fix it, at least mostly.
I hope so. Uh, yeah, because it's like when it's in the yellow, I don't know what to do with it. Um, so it's a light novel series, and it doesn't immediately make me want to gouge out my eyes. Nor does it have, shall we say, protagonist Kun with the hair over his eyes and what's the term? Antisocial attitude. So tell us about it. What sort of what's the storyline going in?
Well, I wanted to do something in the genre because I've been enjoying a lot of fantasy anime, especially isekai ones over the last couple of years since I got back into it. But one of the things that bugged me about most of them is that the protagonists are kind of the same person in many respects. Because I mean, that is part of the point
Yeah.
sometimes, but it also gets tiresome when they're all the same. Just like a person who's like the shut-in guy who has no experiences with anything and a very blank slate. So when I wanted to do my own story, I didn't want to just do all of the tropes to the most base level because I want to write my own story. I mean, I'm not, I'm trying to preserve the aspects of the genre that make it fun, but also I want to just make it my own story. I'm not trying to like ape the Japanese style so much. I'm not throwing in like Japanese words everywhere for no reason just because it's a light novel. Like it's written as I write my books, just the setting and the style is inspired by more anime art style and the world set up a little bit. So I wanted a main character who's a very different and a much more proactive main character, and a character who has actual skills and things that are relevant to what he wants to do. So and also, I mean, I think the idea initially came up into my mind when I was watching. I forget which show it was, and I was like, well, what would happen if it was someone who was an actual soldier who was reasonably competent at like just general skills was in place of the main protagonist, and from there just I just kind of grew the idea until it ended up where it is now.
So what made you? So we talked about what inspired you to write a light novel. So what sort of made you want to invest your time and effort into this? Like what like light novels, shall we say, aren't really a Western style. What are you bringing to the table that I can't get from some cheap Japanese knockoff?
I'm hopefully going to bring overall better writing because I do hear from a lot of people who've read a lot more light novels than I have. And even the better ones, the writing, I mean, obviously part of it's because most of them are translated. So the writing style of it, like, can be grating for a lot of people. Like I know one of my beta readers, he reads a lot of light novels, and so he's mentioned that to me also. Like, and I see him talk about it just generally online also as he reads other stories.
Yep.
That the writing, even in the better ones, could be an issue. So that's why I'm just trying to write it as I would write my other books. There's obviously a different focus, different genre, and also there is the line of thought that shorter books are in some ways better if you're trying to do indie publishing because you can put out more books faster or more cheap, and it's just a more efficient way of getting more products out there, which is hopefully going to bring more people in overall. So
I dig it. And you're absolutely right. Most of the light novel writing is pretty junky, almost to the
Mm-hmm.
point of illegibility. We've talked about Shield Hero here multiple times. I actually read that during my road trip on Niagara Falls. I read it like in basically a day while I was cleaning my clothes in a laundromat that was full of mosquitoes. Um, just went do 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 because I could sort of speed read. I'm not like
yeah,
but like I was just like okay 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 okay, and like and then it was like oh and then he buys a slave. That's messed up. It doesn't get better. Um, so I assume I am trusting you here, Yakov, because I have bought the $30 pledge with the first physical copy, and of course I'll if I like it I'll buy the rest of them. Don't you worry. I'll be putting that money back in your pockets. Um, and I am hoping. I believe in you that you won't have a character randomly buy a slave and then more or less emotionally abuse. I don't want to think about it. I watch too much Red Letter Media and Civi 11 because I'm making their
I watch
jokes.
some of the media religiously also, so I'm familiar with it.
uh, Anthony, what do you look in for a good light novel?
So the interesting thing about now, actually, before I answer that specific question, to be clear, this is an isekai light novel. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So in terms of a good light novel, I don't really read them. I watch them. Uh, and the last one that I watched that I actually thought was legitimately good was probably hmm, let's see, episode 1 of So I'm a Spider, So What was okay. Uh, I mean, technically, Log Horizon, since season 3 is coming out now, but, of the more recent ones, Konosuba is the most recent, and it's not that recent anymore.
No.
So,
Yeah.
I suppose what I'm saying is, light novels suck. They're terrible. At least isekai light novels are.
But
Legend of the Galactic Heroes, if you want to get technical, was also a light novel series. Everybody just forgets that because it's not an isekai light novel series.
but the thing is that
Yeah.
honestly, most of these people are looking for a quick buck. They're looking to catch the tails on things. They write isekai not because they've got a good writing stuff or whatever, but they're chasing the dollar in the
You're chasing the trend.
yeah.
Some of this is unfair. Like, anime takes years to make, and the isekai isekai light novel boom was kicked off really because Sword Art Online was a way bigger hit than it had any reason to be. Uh, and some of these things were made either at the same time as Sword Art or even before Sword Art and were just made into anime because Sword Art was such a huge hit. Like Log Horizon, for example, I'm pretty sure it came out like around the same time that Sword Art Online did. It's just, it ended up being made years later. It's also really weird to think and remember that Sword Art Online, the anime, is technically still airing, and also is absolutely nothing like season one at this point.
So
Like,
Yeah,
I
I've
think
only
it's
seen
a
season one, but I can't speak to.
I think that the
that's
current
all you
arc
need.
of Sword Art Online is like a Gamers Rise Up thing. Uh, I don't I don't care to actually check or look into it or watch it because season one is absolutely atrocious and season two is no better. But yeah,
So what's the anime plans,
it's weird
Yakov?
that it's still going.
Make enough money that I could find people interested in doing that. I mean, I do have a stretch goal. If this campaign manages to reach $10,000, I'm going to commit to doing like I guess like a sampler or like a base like a trial run or something. Not like a few. I don't have to calculate the amount it will cost for how many pages, but I would do like a chapter's worth of a manga adaptation, and then I have to do another Kickstarter for that if I want to do it. But I mean, as I set the goal pretty high for that as a stretch goal because I need to make sure there's enough interest in it at this
Absolutely.
point to be able to commit to that soon. I mean, obviously it could also grow over time, and then I could do it eventually. But do it in the near future, in the immediate future, I would have to know there's enough interest right now because obviously comics cost a lot of money because a lot of art involved. Even for a manga where it's all black and white, so it's a little bit cheaper, it adds up. So
Absolutely.
and it takes time.
And I must congratulate you. It's already been very successful. You said it was 70% funded so far, first week.
Yeah, I mean it's my best performing crowdfund ever. I think. I mean
Yeah,
my highest total raised already. I'm not even done yet, and like my best opening week ever. I mean, there is still a chance I could even fully fund in a week if I could get a good boost over the next 2 days, and then
well,
obviously then I can push the stretch goals. But I'm not going to get ahead of myself too much. So for now, I'm just trying to move it along, and obviously it's also a higher goal that I've set than previous one because I am funding 5 books at once here as opposed to a single book. So
yep.
there is that also. I
So,
wanted to do 5 books together because it would slow things down way too much to try and fund each book individually. So I decided, you know what, they're short books anyway. I could just do 5 at once, and they're cheap enough to produce that I could afford to do 5 at once, and now I have to set a ridiculous goal. So here we are.
absolutely. And right now we're just sort of riffing on things because this is kind of wonderful. I love seeing it when other people, especially people with ideals very close to mine, mess with it. And of course, we got to give you a little
Hmm.
crap, but this stuff is. Oh, somebody just donated like $200. It
Yeah,
went up to 270.38 from
oh,
250 200.
that's nice.
Yeah, I know, right? Thank you, whoever did that. Like,
Yeah, thank
man,
you.
good job.
Whatever that was,
Yeah.
a nice chunk
So
closer to where we need to be.
okay, let's get to the interesting questions, the tough
Yeah.
questions, shall we say? So Ben and I think that Ben would agree with me. We are both on the record as saying that isekais by and large suck. There are maybe like three exceptions in the modern isekai landscape that don't suck, and the ones that are actually really good that aren't comedies, like Konosuba, number like two. So, with that
Mhm.
said, why does your isekai not suck?
Well, part of it is that I'm approaching it
What puts
not
it?
as like, yeah, I'm approaching it not as just an isekai. I'm approaching it because I mean, portal fantasy, which is what isekai is, has been around for pretty much forever. Like I mean, like Narnia was a portal fantasy, and Alice in Wonderland was a portal fantasy. So that these kind of stories are not a new thing. And like I said, I'm even though I'm using the anime style and some tropes from it to a degree, I am very much writing kind of story that I'm interested in. And like I said before, we were talking before the stream, um, like I've been watching a lot of isekai anime over the last couple of years, and some things that were bugging me about them is part of what prompted me to really start moving along with this project in the first place. Like I wanted a much more proactive protagonist,
Yep.
someone who's not a blank slate character.
So I'll
And
tell you what my biggest issue with the modern isekai landscape is, and it also goes into why some of my favorite shows and anime are some of my favorites. So my biggest problem with the modern isekai landscape is one that all isekai now at this point are sort of reacting to, but in my opinion, a lot of them just kind of tiptoe around the subject. It's that they're all very unhealthy wish fulfillment. Wish fulfillment is not necessarily, in and of itself, a bad thing. Like there
yeah,
are various types of wish fulfillment. You know, you could have wish fulfillment that you're John Carter of Mars, and that's not necessarily a terrible thing. So, in terms of like the wish fulfillment that is inherent or at least as very common to isekai, you'll often see something along the line, something like, I don't know if how well you know like the sociosexual hierarchy terminology that Ben and I, bandy about very casually on here, but the gamma male the gamma male fantasy, you know,
yeah, I'm
is
generally aware
something.
of that. I mean, we're
There you
not
go. So,
talking about.
isekai are chock full of the gamma male fantasy. Shield Hero was something that
Yeah,
I think became popular because it pretended to not be that, but Shield Hero was
yeah,
just as much a gamma fantasy as Sword Art was, just with a twist. Same thing with Slime Isekai. It was another one that sort of pretended to not be that, but it absolutely was when you look down on it. The plot of yours. Do you get away from the gamma male fantasy? What is the plot of your isekai? Like, what are you doing that you're avoiding this particular problem, or are you not avoiding it and you're just doing it really well, which is also a possibility, by the way.
I mean, like I said a little bit before, I mean, one of the main issues I have with a lot of the protagonists in a lot of these shows and other light novels is that they're very like passive characters. Like they get sent to the world, they get told what they have to do, and it's like, okay, I'm going to go do this thing, follow the quest line to the next checkpoint, to the next checkpoint, and then go do the thing. And then obviously there could be various little twists on that, but it most of the time ends up being the exact same thing. So when I set up the story, and the basic premise is this character who's a soldier in the real world, so he's already a very different kind of personality and with a very different skill set than the usual isekai protagonist gets sent to this other world um, that he doesn't take. He takes a very active role in what's going on. Like I mean, part of what I did is when he first gets sent there, for plot reasons, I can't say exactly what happens without spoiling things, but he gets basically just dropped off like in the middle of like nowhere almost. Like he's not brought to where people could explain things to him right away. So he at the very beginning has no idea what the hell is going on. And then as he slowly figures things out, then he just makes decisions on what he wants to do based on what he's seen and what he decides is the right thing to do, as opposed to like doing what they're people telling him he's supposed to do at that point. Like he's told to go to this city to go meet with the king or whatever, and he's like, no, I kind of want to stay here and help you guys out with this problem first, and then I'll go there later once I'm done with this. So like he's very, I mean, I guess saying um like has authority issues is kind of like not really exactly correct, but he's kind of like he's not going to just take everything at face value if he's being told the thing, and he's not going to like just go along with the flow. Like everything he's doing is just like this is what I want to do, and I'm going to do it. And if you get in my way, then I'm going to make it a problem for you. I mean, by the end of the first book, again, I really can't talk about much beyond the first book because there is a pretty big twist on things plot wise at the end of the first book. I mean, that completely changes the trajectory of what he's even on this planet doing at that point, and that sets the stage for really the rest of the series or most of the rest of the series. Um,
So, what can you tell us
so
about your character? What's his name? What motivates him? What's he like to do? And why? How is he
So
handling
he's
the
an
new
isekai
world?
soldier, you said.
yeah. I mean, his name is Uriel. Basically he's a soldier in the IDF here, and like originally from America, and basically someone who I can identify with to a degree because I also went to the army in Israel after moving from America. Main reason I did that in the story actually is apart from a plot reason, also because that gives me a reason why he's thinking in English. Also, um, somebody who is native here, which we have to then explain why everything is in English. Because I also, when in the story, for various plot reasons, also when he uses magic, he has to use Hebrew for it. Like on this world, basically, you have to use magic. You have to use your like ancestral language, whether you actually know it or not, like innately. So I wanted the magic to be in Hebrew, but I wanted the language that he's speaking, whatever, to be English. That's part of the reason why I made him originally from the U.S. and then moved there to go to the army. And he's also a religious character. I decided also I wanted to have an openly religious character because you never see that in pretty much any fiction now, apart from like maybe some post people or subversive people. So I wanted to do that also because once I knew I was going to be writing a Jewish protagonist, I wanted to do it right and have an actual like aspirational religious character because you don't see that anywhere in fiction. At least not that I've seen before.
That's true.
So like a lot of it came up. A lot of it
Yeah.
just came down to like I knew I was going to go this direction. I wanted to just go all the way and also do it correctly. So
You're absolutely right.
that plays a pretty decent, like a pretty large role in it because also as a religious person, also and also as a normal person, he doesn't just like when he gets sent to the new world, he doesn't just say, "Oh, I guess I'm here now and I'm going to move on with everything." Like he does miss back home, and he does to varying degrees over the course of the story want to get back because he belongs there. He has a duty. He was in the army. He doesn't want to just not go back to that ever again. But I mean, obviously, it gets more complicated as things progress in this world. So, like, also, I wanted to make sure that I have a character who doesn't just completely ignore past or completely ignore where he came from, while still obviously getting on with what needs to be done in his new location. So, that was part of it. Also, I really wanted to
So
just do, yeah,
yeah, no, that was a very good answer. That definitely
Excellent.
helps get an idea of the story. Uh, my question is, you mentioned that you watched a lot of different isekai. I guess as like
I mean, a
planning
lot.
and getting
I mean, a lot. I
genre
mean, a
for
lot
this.
being like maybe like a half dozen or so. I mean, not that many. I only got back into anime at all like maybe
I see.
2 years ago now. So
So in terms of isekai, you're talking like the modern isekai landscape. Like, have you seen
yeah,
Vision of Escaflowne, for example?
I'm vaguely familiar with it, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, because that's one. Isekai in anime can almost be divided into, and I could even be simplifying this because I'm no historian or anything like that. But at the very least, it could be divided into two distinct periods. There's like there's like the older classic isekai versus modern video game isekai. And the distinction people will often give is Sword Art Online, even though that's not really true. It's actually dot hack that started that distinction. Sword Art just is what made it explode in popularity. But the older types of isekai were shows like Vision of Escaflowne, which is a great show that I do recommend. But that was more like what we would think of as portal fantasy. And that was like, a teenage girl is transported to another world, and there's a romance there, and it's also a mech story. It's a really weird show, but a lot of fun. And there were a few different shows like that. But Vision of Escaflowne, I think, was the most famous.
12 Kingdoms
Now,
is
of the
is
modern.
the
Oh,
contender.
that's true. Yeah, my mistake. You're right. 12 Kingdoms. But that's like the older classic isekai style. And
Yeah.
that has fallen literally completely out of fashion. I cannot remember the last time I've seen anything in that style. There's the modern isekai dot hack. When people think of isekai, the first thing they think of is stuck in a video game. So
Yeah.
here's here's a quick question while I, go on my roll here. Do you use video game mechanics in your isekai?
No.
Oh.
Good.
Oh.
I
Uh,
I'm a very
thank you.
casual gamer, and I enjoy epic fantasy. Like that's what I grew up reading, and I play video games, but not that many. So like obviously there is magic rules and stuff that limits things and everything like that. But there's no stats, there's no hit
Good.
points or anything like.
So, of the modern isekai, I mentioned before that I consider it not counting comedies like Konosuba, and honestly, it's not even
Yeah.
comedies, it's comedy. That's like the only comedy isekai I think is particularly great. Uh, the outside of that, the only isekai that there are really only two isekai that I think are legitimately like on the level of really good to great, and they are Log Horizon, which I think is actually a great show, and the Saga of Tanya the Evil, which is right on the cusp of being a great show. I don't think it has quite the depth or the you know,
I
I don't think that there is enough to it to be great, but it's close.
I think you'd like that one actually. It's
Yeah, no, I've
basic.
seen that one. That one,
Oh,
that one I've seen. I haven't Log Horizon. I haven't seen, but I have seen that one because I did at some point I watched Isekai Quartet show, and I decided to watch all the shows that were involved in that, just so I had some idea of what was going on in that, because I enjoyed the
I
comedy
see.
aspects of all of it. Everybody combining and mixing around. Because actually, some of those shows, like I think Overlord was one of them. The characters work better in a comedy setting than in their actual show.
Yeah, Overlord's kind of disappointing. Overlord should have been better
Yeah,
than it was. It was very pedestrian.
yeah.
Uh,
That's why I say. I mean, the characters really work better in like their comedic sketches they have for the main show, and then also in the Sky Quartet version where they're just like just screwing around with everything, because that's where the character interactions are what's fun with that show. Nothing else is kind of that interesting. I think the plot is really boring in that show.
what did you think of? I'm now I'm curious because that means that you must have seen ReZero, right?
Yes, and that was one of the more recent ones that I caught up on, and now I've been
Yes,
watching them.
it's
Yeah,
currently airing.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
what did you
I've been
think
yeah.
of ReZero? Because ReZero, people's opinions on ReZero tend to vary wildly. Like, I've seen it run all over the map from one of the greatest shows ever made to I hate it and I can't stand it. So, I'm curious,
Oh,
what did
yeah,
you think of ReZero?
I enjoyed the first season overall. I mean, it was like fun. I didn't think it was amazing or anything like that, but it was. I mean, I think it had a little bit more to it than some of the other isekai out there have. But the problem, my biggest issue with it is that to at a certain point, the respawn gimmick kind of became like a crutch that let them just slow the pacing down, like to almost glacial levels. Like it was even. I mean, this second season is actually much worse for me in that regard, because I feel like almost nothing happened for the first half of the season, because it was just the same loop he was going through for the entire time. And I was just waiting for it to get on with it already. But I mean, I don't know where it's going now. But like, I mean, I'm not as I think it is starting to wear on me a little bit now. I don't hate it or anything. I think it's
I get what
overall
you're
it's still
saying.
enjoyable to watch. Like it's still enjoyable to watch. Like I'm still gonna finish this season at least, and then decide what I want to do after
Re
that. But like a lot of it is
Yeah,
just getting a little
ReZero
bit
is
irritating.
kind of an interesting case because my issues with ReZero, and this is in fairness to it, are actually not exactly the same as my issues with like Shield Hero, Slime Isekai, and Sword Art Online. Like it has its own problems. But at the very least that means
Yeah,
it's doing something, a little bit different.
yeah,
Empyrean
yeah,
Blade says the lack of religious considerations is one thing that drove me crazy with Log Horizon. Yes, I will say that religion tends to be Japan's Achilles heel, and this holds true with Log Horizon as with anything else, I would agree. However, I will point out, in a mild defense, even though I do think that's a fair criticism, in a mild defense of Log Horizon, I will point out that the characters are all Japanese in the show, so religion is genuinely something that wouldn't come up as much as it would in, other areas of the world. Yeah, Log Horizon. So you said you've never seen it. I highly recommend Log Horizon. It is the only isekai that I would put on the level of great. Like I said, Tanya the Evil, I would put right on the edge. I think it's
yeah.
borderline, but I don't think it has the depth. I don't think it quite has the depth. I don't think it has quite enough to say to be considered great. It's just very good.
and that
Uh,
soundtrack. Oh, that
and that
soundtrack.
soundtrack.
Yeah, the
Da,
soundtrack
Jingo
is
da,
very good.
Jungle is
da.
Jingo Jungle is a great OP.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
But
I think I
anyway,
downloaded it when I wanted that when I first heard.
I have the Lian Lee English cover of it. I play sometimes on like those rhythm games.
Yeah,
I
but
play that.
there's a ton of good covers. There's a German cover that's really good. Also, I think I found on YouTube.
Oh, I might have to
It's
look that up.
it's very
That song
appropriate
sounds
because
like it just should be German.
well, there really are. I mean, isn't already like a quarter German to begin with? Like there are a bunch of German words, or at least maybe that's the other song, the other one, the ending song with a lot of German in it. One of the two
So,
main things it has. Yeah.
so with Log Horizon, though, I'll bring it up because I want to tell you, like, it's a good example of, what does like, what I mean when I say what I'm looking, what I'm looking for in an isekai. Because what does Log Horizon do differently? Log Horizon is ostensibly, it's just about, like, a patch is added to an MMO game called Elder Tale or something, like it matters. A patch is added to an MMO game, and after
Yeah.
the patch is uploaded, everybody playing the game is trapped in the game. And that's it. That's the story. So, and you follow the main It has this huge cast of characters, but the main character who we follow is called Shiro, and Shiro is a like extreme player who is known as a genius strategist in the game. So the thing about Log Horizon that it does a lot of things. It's a very ambitious show, and it's not always completely successful with everything it tries. However, I appreciate how much it is. But particularly what I like about Log Horizon is the honesty of it. So in many ways, Log Horizon is still like a wish fulfillment fantasy. Shiro is a high-level MMO player who, all of a sudden, much like in all of these other isekai, his very specific skill set is suddenly the most important thing in the world, and that makes him highly desirable. And, just like you see with Kirito, just like you see with Naofumi in a different way. People will deny that with Naofumi. They'll say, well, isn't the point that he's defensive? But no, Naofumi is just as overpowered as Kirito in his own way.
Yeah, at least by the end of the season, you for sure is.
Yep. So, Shiro, in some ways, is the same as that. But here is the difference, I think, with Log Horizon. Log Horizon recognizes that there is something that is seriously messed up about Shiro. First, when we meet him, it's a lighthearted show, don't get me wrong, but or relatively so. I mean, it takes itself seriously. I just mean it's not like it doesn't go for that grim dark
Yeah,
tone that Shield Hero
yeah,
goes
yeah.
for, you know, because Shield Hero is capital E edgy.
Well, at least it
Log,
pretended to
Log
be
Horizon,
for a
yeah,
few episodes.
exactly. Log Horizon isn't going for that sort of thing. So that's so. But
Yeah.
however, uh, it understands if you are an extremely high level MMO player, then that means you must have been pretty obsessed with the game. And if you are now trapped in the game and your mental psyche is still more or less stable, something must have been seriously messed up about you in the real world. And Log Horizon, because it is an honest show that understands its characters, actually acknowledges this. And eventually, in one of my favorite scenes from the show, and I think it's considered by most people to be one of the best scenes in the show, we learn that Shiro, when he was in the real world, was like suicidal at one point as a child. That he got so obsessed, and that's why he got so obsessed and so into this game. That's why he was so okay about just kind of being stuck in this world. The other thing that Log Horizon does is that, sure, our main heroes are the ones who are competent and who are able to last in this world, but acknowledges the existence of these other people who don't want to
Yeah.
be there and doesn't minimize them. So
Yeah,
they're
that's one of the reasons
there.
I wanted to do my story also. I really like I intentionally made my main character not an overpowered character because I wanted to have like the team dynamic that you need to have like the main crew that you all work together because that's more interesting to me anyway. And also just in general with
That's good
I
to
mean
hear.
like I forget when Brandon Sanderson was an author who said this a while ago, like years ago now, that it's more interesting about the magic systems you have is what the limits are than what it could actually do. And so that's something that I like a lot. Like it's why the magic my main character has is not really particularly useful in terms of like direct offense. It has a lot of utility. Like basically it's light magic, so he can summon light and he could do other creative things with it. But requires him to be creative because he can't just blow things up with it. So that requires him to work together with his team. It is a group of him. It ended up being a group of 7 of them that are the main core group. As of that time, they all show up in book 3. Yeah, in book 3, as of book 3, they all make their appearance and join the main group, and then that's really the main group for throughout the entire series, obviously with other side characters involved. on occasions and things like that. So I really wanted to have all of the main characters have roles to play and be like have a reason for them to be there. Because like I think with Shield Hero was one of the big letdowns of the latter half of the season. And by the end of that point, by that point, the other two members of his party didn't mean anything in battles. Like they were just there to kind of just draw fire at that point.
Uh, so Shield Hero, I mean, the,
Because
Ben and
early
I
on,
have
there was
had,
there was
yeah, Ben and I have had like full episodes specifically on Shield Hero because Shield Hero is kind of a
yeah.
case, and the reason that we've had like full episodes of this show on Shield Hero is because both of us were frustrated. I think that Shield Hero was kind of getting a pass when it was making basically all of the same sorts of big mistakes that Sword Art Online was making. It was just trying to disguise it,
Well, it's
and
because
people were buying it.
I think at the very basically its beginning was different, and then it kind of just falls into that same
So
path
Shield Hero,
after the first.
the first episode of Shield Hero, or at least the first 20 minutes of Shield Hero, I thought when I first saw it, and I'm apparently like this isn't a very common opinion. I noticed, but this was my opinion. I thought the first like 20 minutes were absolutely awful. Now Fumi shows up in the fantasy world. He does not react to being transported there at all. It doesn't seem to remotely phase him. He's not slightly surprised. He takes his assignment like, well, this is what I'm doing now, and he doesn't even really seem to care. And then he's betrayed, and that's when the interesting stuff happens. Now, on one hand, there is a point where isekai is such a common genre that everybody expects you to react in a certain way. So, you wanna just kind of push past that as quickly as possible to get to the interesting or fun stuff. And in this case, look of Shield Hero is the betrayal, the fact that he gets a defensive weapon, and that he becomes an edgelord. Right? Like,
Yeah.
so they're trying to get to the hook of Shield Hero as quickly as possible. And on the other hand, this made Naofumi a character that was impossible for me to identify with. Like, I do not understand the sort of person who gets transported to a fantasy world and just goes, huh,
Neat.
well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's right. That was one of the major complaints about the show. Also, even though I did enjoy the season overall, like that was a big issue I had. Is I mean, I think someone said that it does get explained later, but that and later is too late at that point because
So
it's
Shield
already.
Hero, I did not think was like I don't think it had no redeeming qualities. I think there were points in the
Yeah.
season it was good. Like I think that after that first 20 minutes, there are a few episodes
Yeah.
at time when basically when Naofumi is actually an underdog. The problem
Yes.
is it is rare that he is actually an underdog in the series. It is only short periods of time. One of the worst moments for me was when he gets into his fight with the spear hero. He actually wins the fight, and then the spear hero have to like cheat him out of the victory. And I
Yeah.
thought that was such a missed opportunity, and that was such a big mistake. Like I was actually kind of mad about him. Like why did he win that fight? Why did he not lose? Like the shield hero should have lost that fight. That would have made me honestly like I think that would have been a better writing decision if he had lost the fight.
But you
But he
see, he
doesn't.
has to
They
be
have to like cheat him
vindicated.
out of the fight. Yeah, exactly. Because he's the gam. It's a gamma fantasy. Uh, However, Shield Hero is a very specific type of gamma fantasy, and there's a point where like I was almost lost on the show, and then something happens to the Shield Hero like relatively late in the season where everybody turns on him again, and all of a sudden he's the underdog again, and then that kind of was like, okay, you know what, this is actually a good dynamic. They set like if you remember the scene that I'm referring to, like they set the forest on fire with him in it, and
Yeah.
everybody turns on him. I'm like, this is actually all really good stuff, and this is a good scene. So I'm like, okay, I'll keep watching it. And then the final episodes of season one were just laughably terrible. Uh,
Yeah.
the
Because kind of because the whole interesting storyline is finished now. So I don't know where it's
Yeah,
supposed to go from there.
first that whole underdog story is now over. Now the Shield Hero is like the most beloved hero in the kingdom. But even besides that, the scene where he spares the king's and or yeah, the king's life and Melty's life is just so hilariously bad, and the fact that the queen just on the spot abolishes a religion, I was like, going, come on, like this is clearly, only Japan, because
Right.
this is clearly somebody who has no clue what religion even is or how it works. Like it was just so bizarre. It's like, right, the shield religion is abominant, saying Satan was the good guy actually, and then having the rest of the church just go, well, I guess we were wrong.
Well, and also it's silly
Oops.
because nothing replaces it at that point. Also, like in real world, whenever a religion does get replaced or overthrown by something right throughout history, it was by something else coming and taking its place almost every time. Like the religions don't just people just don't decide like, okay, I guess we're done with this religion now. We're just gonna do nothing. Like
Like, and it
that
was
makes it extra
clearly a
silly.
major thing. Like, the Shield Hero cult was apparently something that they had been looking out for like
Yeah.
at least decades, maybe centuries. Like, they were waiting for the Shield Hero to show up. So it was just so laughably bad. And they had that whole hilarious edgelord thing where he has like, I don't know, he renames Melty Slut or something. The name Melty for the princess was always really terrible to me.
Yeah, a lot of
That's right. Excuse me. As we were
Yeah.
riffing on him.
well, it's also it's not translate. Best way to translate it is like God's light or something like.
Yeah.
The exact best way to translate it, but basically the name includes the Hebrew word, right? One of the Hebrew words for light, and that's the kind of power that he gets in the story. So as part of the reason why I chose it too. But also, I want a name that's relatively easy to pronounce for people who don't know Hebrew. Also, I don't want to choose like names that people can't pronounce. That's never a good idea to have hard to pronounce character names in general. So
Hmm.
that was a pretty deliberate choice.
It's a good choice. It's fantastic.
Hmm.
So, do you have like, without spoiling too much for our viewers? Let's see here. Hey, Bradford Walker. Surprised I don't get much more stick in my art for my RPG options. I'm not sure what that means, Bradford. Uh,
RPG opinions, he said.
oh, opinion. Excuse me. I misread that. Um, with let's see here. So with your character, could you guide us through like the first 5 or so chapters of your story?
Yeah, I'll try and do it in a relatively non-spoilery way. I mean, he basically gets teleported to the fantasy world like within the first 10 pages, or probably maybe even 5 pages. Like I don't waste any time getting him there.
Does he
Take him a
get hit
little bit
by
of
a
time to
truck?
just. No, he doesn't get killed. He just gets pulled through a portal.
Okay.
I decided to not go with the Truckun route.
You're a man
But
after our
within the
heart.
first, basically, I gave a couple pages at the very beginning to just introduce who he is in his normal life here on this planet, basically, so you get an idea of where his life is and what's things that will maybe a little frustrating to him and what's important to him. Like his family comes up. In the first chapter, he's leaving a message for his sister, who's also in the army. So like to set up that he cares about people in our world before he gets sent to the other one. And so then he gets sent to the fantasy world, and like I said a little while ago, he get like the plot reasons find out later why this is, but he basically just appears in the middle of a field, like in the middle of nowhere, and so he has to then just be like, well, I need to figure out where I am, and he just starts walking, and then from there he basically runs into someone and helps some people out with a problem, and then they bring him to the nearest town, and he basically starts learning more about the world and especially about the area that he showed up in. And then he makes a decision at that point that he doesn't want to do what he's apparently supposed to do, which is go to the capital city to go meet with the king and the other people who are transported. Also, like, as far as what he's been told, at least he has never seen them at that point. He decides he's going to stay where he is now, because the people there need help, and he knows that he could help them. And so that's really, I wanted to make it clear very early on that he's not going to just accept being told a thing, because that's just how it is. He's going to be like, I want to do this because I can help these people, and I really don't care if I'm on paper supposed to go do this now. Like, this is what's more important, and this is what's right. So I'm just going to go and stay here. If you have a problem with that, we'll take it up later. So that's really the beginning. I mean, like the first book is actually like a relatively small in scale because the first book really is focused on a more local issue that he basically decides to take on before he actually goes to the capital city to find out what's going on with like why he was brought there in the first place. Nobody where he is actually knows, like beyond a very basic idea of why he was summoned. So he decides to put that all off to help with this local problem. And then in the end of the book, that's when he goes there, and that's when things take a very drastic turn that really starts setting the stage for what's going to happen throughout pretty much the entire rest of the series. So, but that would be spoiling things.
Of
I mean, I
course.
can say that, like, what I can say is that, like, what I can say, and I included in one of the taglines somewhere, is that beyond the fact that he doesn't just immediately forget about his past life on our world, like there are things that he can't escape from this world that follow him to a degree to the fantasy world also. So I'm not going to really say any more because I would spoil maybe what they are to a degree. But I mean, beyond just the fact that he's religious and beyond the fact that he still cares about people who are back on Earth, there are other things from his past life that come into play that impact his decisions, especially at the beginning here. That, like I said, set the stage for the main plot that's going to run through pretty much the entire series. Like I've pretty well plotted out. I mean, I have the first outlines are done through book 10 already, and I mean, I'm probably going. It's
Hey.
probably going to be about. It's probably going to be maybe 20 something volumes. I mean, I can't. I only didn't. The only reason I didn't outline beyond book 10 is because outlining more than a few books ahead creates other problems. So I decided 5 books ahead at most is the most. That's enough distance because of that. Once you get past that, it's just even if you change one small thing 7 books earlier, then you have to just redo the whole outline. So I just decided I'll do it in chunks of 5 and kind of leapfrog them as I write them and then crowdfund them and all of that.
So you've written out two book five, like the product's already here.
Yeah. No, the first 5 books are already fully written. All I have to do for those is really just do a final revision. My beta reader has read through all of them, given me his feedback on it, and so I just need to go through all of them to just do a line edit. And on the later, I think in books 3, 4, and 5, to just do a little bit of additional revisions. But those are all done. Book 6 already. I mean, I'm already 70% done with book 6 at this point, and then like I said, books all the way through book 10 is outlined. So, and I have obviously like a general idea of what's going to be happening, like major plot points and development and stuff beyond that. Also, I mean, I already know how it's going to end, 90% certainty, which is also something that I think is important too, because I'm not a big outliner, and I don't want a series that's going to just run on forever, just because even if it does well, I don't want to just push it on forever just because I can. I want to have it end at a right point and a satisfying point. So I mean, that's what I do with my other series too that I just finished, the Yaku's Ending series, like the space opera. That we see with Star Wars, when they don't have a plan for afterward, we have a lot of problems with any sequels in the same setting. I really want to make sure that I have a plan on where it's going to end, and then that obviously will impact what else I could theoretically do or can't do in the setting going forward.
Sounds like you have a plan, and I'm always glad to hear that from people we
Yeah.
have on here to talk about, these things. Because it's always, more than just, oh, it's this or I'm riffing on that. No, it's you have a plan, you have ideas, you have things that you're following through on, which is outstanding. And of course, you've already delivered several times to backers. It's a definitely a uh, product we can trust, which is
Yeah, like I
very
said, and the
important.
books are all like I said, the books are all written. The only thing I'm waiting on is the internal arts. The only issue I have with that right now is my artist is in the Philippines, and from what I understand, the internet in the Philippines is like a complete like dumpster fire.
Yes.
So we had like issues with it. Like there was one time like a month ago where he had no internet for like almost a month, and I couldn't contact him at all. He couldn't contact me because the internet was so incompetent that he tried to upgrade his plan, and they instead of upgrading him, canceled him, and he couldn't get into contact customer service for like 2 weeks because it's just so bad.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And yeah, and I see on Twitter, I was just searching to just find out what might be going on because at that point I had no idea what was happening, like where he was. And I was able to find enough complaints of people about the internet, like, to the companies there, that like that I see, okay, this is apparently a problem. So I'm really going to try and I'm waiting to hear back from him again now. It might be another issue or something. So I'm waiting to hear back again. And then once I hear back, I'm going to try and figure out a way to contact him that's more reliable beyond the freelancing site that we've been in communication with. So that if
Mm-hmm.
there's any issues in the future, we could kind of at least stay updated and just be able to at least so at least we all both know what's going on, like without having been cut off for chunks at a time.
Yeah.
So that's why I set my delivery goal later than I actually planned. On the crowdfund, I think I said the delivery date's going to be in May. I really want to have the books out by like March, but I wanted to set a later date just in case these delays that I can't control come up, that I have that time to work with. And obviously, delivering early is never a negative thing. So I decided to play it safe because his art is really good and his rates are very good and he's really great to work with. So even if there are delays because of like uncontrollable stuff, I still want to work with him long term because you can see the art that I posted so far. I mean, it's really good. So yeah, I'm really happy with the work he's done so far. And like I say, he's really easy to work with. Like any like adjustments I have to make or anything like that, like he's happy to do it. He doesn't complain if I have anything to revise at any point. So so yeah, so that's really like I said, the only issue I have right now is Philippines internet. But other than that, everything is going along pretty nicely. So
Hmm. That's fantastic. Eldritch fan came in, just tuned in. What's up? We're just talking about light novels, RPG. Not really RPG, but just sort of light novel stuff, Kickstarters. Do check at the top of the chat for a link to this excellent Kickstarter. Uh, I'm looking forward to it from everything you've said. Uh, you have passed our light novel grilling, uh, which is always important because honestly, I don't think these guys who write these Japanese light novels could answer questions about their story at all. Maybe the Log Horizon guy, the Tanya the Evil guy, the uh, 12 Kingdoms woman, that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, the Log Horizon guy is hilarious because he went to jail for tax fraud, and Horizon is like a libertarian. It's basically, I don't want to say propaganda, but that I don't think that that's quite right. I'm trying to think of the right word. It's an argument for libertarianism in many ways. There is a fantastic scene in Log Horizon where somebody mentioned something along the lines of, "Hey, if you have not noticed, everybody and there's been economic inequality as the rich are getting richer and the poor getting poorer. Perhaps we should consider redistributing some of this wealth." And all of the other members of the round table just like look at him and go, "Dude, shut up, get away. No, no, we're not doing that terrible commie idea. That's ridiculous."
yeah,
And
I think that was one good moment in the Game of Thrones like season finale series finale. Somebody suggested like democracy, and everyone just laughed at him. Like
that's
it
kind
was a
of
pretty
funny,
terrible
but it's
episode, but
also
that was
yeah, that's kind of funny, but it's also really on the nose and very easy.
yeah, yeah.
In Log
I know
Horizon, I'm
it was
being fair. It makes it sound as if this is very on the nose, but this was actually very organically done. Everybody was in character. It made sense in the scene.
yeah.
It was funny to me because I knew that the guy who did it was like a hyper libertarian, you know. And so
Mhm.
I heard him go like, perhaps we should consider redistributing the wealth somewhat because there's widespread inequality throughout the land. And everybody there is like, no, no, that's a terrible idea. Don't be ridiculous. And I actually think, because again, Log Horizon is written by somebody who is not a hack and who is an honest writer. I'm pretty sure, though I haven't read it, so I don't know, but I'm pretty sure they're going to be exploring that idea again in this season. Uh, which is good because that means he's not just running away from it.
Mhm.
He's at least addressing the concept. Uh, yeah, I recommend Log Horizon. I would say, however, that it's not for everyone. Uh, It is a show where the appeal is not the action scenes, and I wouldn't even necessarily say the appeal was in the characters themselves, but rather in the ideas. Log Horizon is about a few different things. It's about trying to build a functional society from the ground up. So, now that they've been transported to this world and they need to survive there, how are they going to build their society? What are they going to do? Therefore, the politics of it play a very big role. Uh, it is also about specifically how nerdy MMO gamers would survive in such a world, which is one of the reasons that it's so great, is that it has a proper understanding of the psychology of the people who live there. So Tanya the Evil is very good for different reasons. However, Tanya the Evil does not have the ambition and does not have the depth. The premise of Tanya the Evil is diabolically brilliant. It has some of
Yeah.
the best battle scenes in anime. The battle scenes are truly spectacular. That soundtrack is A plus plus plus, and there's some depth there, but I don't think that that it is trying to be or wants to be anything where, yeah, I'm getting my words mixed up. Anywhere near as ambitious as Log Horizon attempts to be. Uh, so I have had an idea of doing an isekai of my own for a long time for similar reasons to you, where I was saying I'm gonna write an isekai that's good because they're all bad. Uh, which, and I'm like, surely they can't just all be bad. There has to be a way to make a good one.
You're carrying the
Yeah.
entire genre on your back, Yakov. I know you're up to the task.
No pressure.
It's all you.
Oh yeah, well my previous series was trying to carry space opera on my back, so I'm used to it, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think there's more good space opera than there is
Yes,
good
very true.
isekai. I will say that.
Yeah,
Even
yeah,
in the anime realm, even in the light novel realm, I mean, everybody kind of forgets, but Legend of the Galactic Heroes was a series of light novels. Nobody really
yeah.
thinks of them that way because they're not like modern light novels, which are all video game isekai. And I'm also being a little bit unfair in that some of the more modern isekai aren't actually terrible. I just don't think any of them have been that great. Like, So I'm a Spider, So What? I watched episode 1. It was pretty funny, I guess. Like, it was not bad. Uh, Ascendance of a Bookworm is very slow, but it's
It's not
honestly
very
also.
popular.
It isn't. Oh, isn't it? It got 2 seasons at least, and the
Eh,
animation seems pretty
like
good, but.
a lot of
But
people.
it's not bad. Like, I think it's decent. Ascendance of a Bookworm.
Hmm,
I think it's better than Shield Hero.
okay, fine. That's a low bar, though. Well, it's a
That
high
is.
bar. It's a high bar at this conga line. There we go.
Well, yeah, because again, I mentioned that to be fair to Shield Hero, the real reason we spend so much time bashing it isn't so much that it's so terrible that it deserves to be bashed that much, but that it's so popular. So I feel
No,
like that it deserves.
it could have been. Also, it could have been much better. Like,
Yeah, that too. A, it could have been better, and B, it's so popular. I feel like I need to go out of my way to justify why I specifically don't like it, because I know that people absolutely love Shield Hero. So if I'm going to say like no, Shield Hero isn't good actually. Uh, I do deserve to like the show has earned me to explain why. I would say
yeah,
something like that. In terms of at least being popular. Log Horizon 2, like Digibro famously, the critic did the old degenerate brony critic Digibro famously said that Log Horizon is one of the best anime series ever made, and has like a love letter video to Log Horizon, which is a great series by the way that I recommend and actually wholeheartedly agree with. But uh, Log Horizon normally isn't put on the list of like best isekai. I put it on the list of best isekai. Digibro puts it on the list of best isekai. But if you look at a ranking of best isekai, it's rare that you will see Log Horizon at the top of that list.
mhm.
Uh, oh, there is another one. I'm sorry, I mentioned two. two isekai that I think are very good to great. There are actually three. There's one more, and it's No Game, No Life. However, this may be cheating a little bit because it's sort of because it's a comedy too. No Game, No Life skirts the edge of being a comedy and being a drama. Uh, and honestly, the reason that I think it's so good is partially because I think it's pretty funny. With that said, though, it does have a movie, No Game, No Life Zero, that is very much not a comedy that I think is quite good. On the other hand, though, the other hand, the movie is not an isekai, so
Yeah,
there's
makes it
that
confusing.
too. What was that?
Makes it confusing, I guess.
Yeah.
Or hard to
So No
classify.
Game No Life is an isekai, but No Game No Life is a comedy. However, it's not quite as straight a comedy as Konosuba, which is just a straight up parody of both isekai and harem anime, and by the way, is absolutely hysterically funny. Uh, No Game No Life is also a comedy, and it's very funny, but it's not quite as straightforward of a comedy as Konosuba is. I think you're supposed to take its world more seriously in No Game No Life, even though what happens in it is generally played for laughs more often than not. You're supposed to take its world more seriously, and this is confirmed when they made a prequel movie called No Game No Life Zero. That is not a comedy and also not an isekai, but is also quite good, in my opinion. Uh, However, the reason that No Game No Life works is because No Game No Life is about those creepy losers who are transported to a world where all of a sudden their one skill is now literally the most important thing in the world and makes them the most powerful people in the world. So it's that sort of wish fulfillment fantasy. But No Game No Life, I think, manages to get away with it because it's a comedy and because the main characters are acknowledged immediately, and I think you're supposed to see them as creepy weirdos. Like, I don't think that the show is trying to, pretend they're anything that they're not, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, also
So,
bringing a useful skill over is that it can be done in better ways. Like in terms of like it becomes annoying when it makes them like an overpowered like superhero, as opposed to like
oh, they're
when they
very
bring over the
overpowered in No Game No Life. The thing is
yeah.
that they're creepy weirdos, and I don't think that you're supposed to see them as not being creepy weirdos. I think that that is very much intentional. Whereas, like, Kirito in Sword Art is a loner badass who's misunderstood by the world, and now Fumi is somebody who, everybody hates him and nobody understands him, man. You just don't
Yeah.
understand, mom. Games are cool. What? Uh, Whereas Sora and Shiro in No Game No Life are really creepy, really weird losers, and now all of a sudden they're really creepy, really weird winners. But they're still creepy and weird. And I think that that's intentional because No Game No Life is pretty funny. So I do recommend that show as well. The other reason that you watch No Game No Life is that it actually has a really interesting plot and like a really interesting world and a really cool visual style. So that's another reason that No Game No Life is worth checking out. The prequel movie takes away all of the comedic aspects, and also it the prequel movie's a really interesting case actually. It takes away the comedic aspects, and it's technically not an isekai, but it takes place like 7,000 years in the past, and it is really really dark. Uh, but I think it's a really good movie. I've watched it, I think twice. I watched it once on my own, and then like way later when me and my siblings were just looking for something to watch, and I said, "Put on No Game No Life Zero. That's a good movie." So yeah, there are other ways that you can make that sort of story work, but I think
Yeah.
it requires an honesty about your characters. I guess that's what I'm getting at. You need to
Yeah.
be honest about the story you're telling, about what your characters are, and you need to have a certain understanding of how they act that is realistic or at the very least fits the world that they live in properly. Now Fumi is a character who I did not find to be honest. Kirito is a character who I did not find to be honest in the way that he was portrayed. Slime is a Kai main character, gets away with it a little bit more because the show is so lighthearted, and it's so happy-go-lucky. ReZero is interesting because ReZero is my issues with ReZero are different than my issues with other shows. These other isekai. To its credit, my problem was never necessarily being honest about the main character. I just think that the story was never that great. it
Yeah,
it
yeah.
had all
Plot
other
issues.
issues.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said before, the plot, especially in the second season, it just moves so slow. And I'm just getting bored at this point because like it's not getting anywhere because like they
Yeah.
overusing the respawn mechanic. Like
So I've
beginning.
seen people argue. ReZero is interesting because I've seen people argue, and I think with some success, that Subaru is actually supposed to be like your typical light novel hero, but he keeps dying and getting shit on over and over and over, and humbled, and he has to grow and change into a better person, and that's fair. And in theory, I should be all about that. So
Yeah.
like that in itself is not the problem with ReZero. It's just a shame to me that ReZero is just like I don't think the story is that great. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean at this point, I don't even know what the plot really is right now, apart from they're trying to escape from this place that they're stuck in for the whole season. Like there really
I
isn't
don't
a
know.
whole lot of driving force of the plot beyond trying to not
Here's a good
not have everybody
example.
get
So
killed.
they just had the episode. This is something that you see, by the way, in tons and tons of isekai. Log Horizon did it. Ascendance of a Bookworm did it, and ReZero did it. And I'm talking about the episode where you see what their life in the real world was like and compare it to,
Uh,
where they are now. It's I think at this point, since I've seen it at least 3 different times in different forms, it's got to be considered a trope, right?
yeah, probably.
So ReZero had that episode, and I don't know if you
Yeah,
saw this one. Did you?
yeah, I did. Yeah, yeah,
It
I'm
was a
caught up
good,
with it.
and I'm gonna be fair to ReZero here. As far as the quality of the episode itself, it was good. I enjoyed it. I don't
Yeah,
necessarily have a problem with the things that happened in that episode. The
it
problems
should have
that
been
I
earlier.
had,
Good
though,
night.
yes, thank you, is that it should have been earlier. I was
Yeah,
wondering
much earlier.
why. Like, how has Subaru never mentioned his parents before this? How did it never come up at any point? Like, I
Yeah,
thought that there must have been some sort of trauma that made him avoid talking about this stuff. But
Right?
no,
They're
yeah,
I guess
loving
not.
parents, apparently.
So your incredible loving parents, I guess there was no issue at all. But okay, yeah, like he was ashamed of them or whatever, but I don't know, was he so ashamed that he doesn't even care that he's never going to see them again? Like it doesn't come up at all.
yeah,
It's never mentioned until it's forced on him. It doesn't really make any sense. And that's my real issue with ReZero. See, the issue with ReZero isn't that there's necessarily a problem with Subaru, who, like I said, is a character that in theory I should be all for. He should be the exact sort of main character of an isekai that I'm looking for. It's like it's just a shame that the story itself isn't. Excuse me. It's just a shame that the story itself isn't that great. Like, I,
yeah,
I wish it were better.
yeah, yeah. I agree with that.
So what
Like,
sort of
it could be so much better than it actually is.
I dig it. What sort of so we've talked a lot about other stuff. What sort of characters can we expect for your series?
Yes.
Like,
Well, without getting too much detail, I mean, obviously you can see this, they're all depicted on the covers at this point. I basically made sure the entire main group all had at least a pair of cover appearances within the first five covers here. So
tell
one
us
thing I
about
also wanted to
yeah.
one thing I wanted to make sure I wanted to make sure there was another male character in the group because I wanted him to have like a male friend also because it's something a lot of these shows tend to not have or like it's something that gets like because it's all about the waifus, and so they don't want it to. They don't have the male friend that's relevant or involved at any point. So I wanted to have at least one male character in it, and also I liked. I mean, you'll notice that all but one of the other supporting characters are non-humans because I find them more interesting in general. Like I kind of just hate all people. So, like in my previous series, there are no humans at all. So this one, obviously, there are humans, but I decided to make the vast majority of the main cast non-human because it just if I'm writing fantasy or science fiction, I'm going to use non-human characters because they're just more interesting to me. And obviously, it gives me more other interesting aspects of them I could develop. Like I wanted, like obviously having a moth character, I wanted her because once I decided his magic was going to be light magic, so I had to have a moth involved somewhere. Um,
Which is a
just for
fantastic
the
idea.
yeah, just for the memes, and also she's actually a very fun character. I think my beta reader, she's his choice for best girl at this point. I
Ooh.
think he likes her a lot, and I think with good reason. I think. I mean, none of them are bad. None of them are meant to be like none of them are like annoying characters or anything like that. But that's he just likes her a lot. So so I mean, um, so I also wanted to have a very different types of backgrounds of my characters too, like without getting into spoilery details of their stories. Like one of the two he meets in the first book, the cat girl and the elf characters. So one of them is kind of just a normal person, like she just kind of grew up in like a small town area with like her father there, and just like that kind of like more like out of the way kind of life. Um,
She has a
whereas the
father?
elf character,
Oh, wow.
yes, yeah, I know, making me doing a lot of unusual things. A father who's not going to just show up and die in his first appearance. Like he's going to be around for like a long time at least. I mean, he's not a one-off character either. He actually kind of an important like minor side character actually when I think about it. But so so the elf character, she's kind of more of like a roguish character, but she has a bit of a not necessarily a hidden backstory, but more details about who she really is and where she's from that come into play later on, and then later in these first books also. And then we have the moth girl, and then we have the snake girl, like mage, like who's basically like an archmage who
You have a
in
snake
terms
girl?
of like in
A
yeah.
lamia? Ooh. Ooh.
So she is like out of all the main group, like the one that has the most obvious, like the base. I mean, the most like I guess directly powerful, like magically speaking, and obviously also and also she has like connection. Like she's kind of like an important person because obviously somebody who's a powerful mage would have some kind of important status in one place or another. So she also has that, and obviously also again like a very she's also like the oldest of the main group by quite a bit. So
Mm-hmm.
also has obviously background stuff that will come into play at some point. And then the last two of the main seven is the like the flame guy. I mean, I call him the species is called a flameborn in the story. I mean, I just wanted something really cool. I mean, I kind of copied the idea to a degree from Magic the Gathering from one of the sets I had like maybe 7, 8 years ago now, where they had like flame people or like stone/flame people, and I just liked the visual of that a lot, so I wanted that.
It's a really cool
And
visual.
he has entire yeah, yeah, and it played very well for like when I made the trailer. I did some animations on it because like Movie Maker with Windows 10 has some like very basic effects you could put on. Like, but so he's probably the one that has the most like the least known about his history by design, like by his personal design from when we first meet him, and then I'm writing now is where we start learning a lot more about how he ended up where he was when they found him, and then the last character is the other human, which is actually the only one that you can't really tell very much from the cover what she's capable of doing. She's like a shapeshifter. I mean, kind of, there is a little hint on the cover actually, because like this, you see her. I don't know if you have it in front of you, but the cover for book three,
Yeah.
like you can see her shadow is not a normal shadow.
Ooh.
So that's just So because she's like a shapeshifter. That's well, not really a spoiler because you find that out like right when you meet her anyway. But that's kind of like just decided to add that as a little nice little visual clue on the cover that she's not just a normal person. And her, I guess, I was gonna like put her in any kind of box of a type of character. She's the one who just has no idea where she's from. Like just basically is like something happened and no memory of where she's from, who her family might be, if they're even alive or anything like that. So I guess very much like the most like I don't know if innocent is the right word, but the most like vulnerable of the characters from an emotional perspective at least.
That's
And
pretty good waifu bait. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, arguably they all are. I mean, depending on what people's tastes are, I guess. But so I mean,
No, that's not true. There's an art to it.
There is an art to it. It's like it's one of
yeah.
those things people don't think about until they actually do it. But like it's why VTubers are so successful.
Mhm.
What were you saying, Anthony?
To actually attempt. It's a very manipulative art that I don't think is necessarily a good idea to actually attempt, but it is 100% an art. Why do you think Raftalia in Shield Hero exists at all as a character? As waifu age. That's it. That's why.
And also very easily, you could very easily sympathetic. Like,
And she could call him master, and you could pretend to
yeah,
be now. Uh,
You can pretend that it's not incredibly creepy.
you can pretend that she's not 10 years old and his actual slave.
yeah, yeah. That's kind of a bit of a sketchy thing. Like all of the characters in this series are at least like a reasonable like age, and the youngest one is maybe like 17 or 18. So I mean, I don't like that trope in anime where everybody they're people who are way too young. So I just don't
That
like
is by
child
far the
characters in
worst
general.
part of anime.
But
Yeah,
bro, you
and
don't
also I just
understand.
Yeah,
personally
that
don't
is
like
by
child
far the
characters.
worst part.
Yeah. I mean, just in general, child characters just irritate me anyway. Like in any kind of fiction, whether or not they're a love interest or not, or anything like that, they just irritate me. Like even Ender's Game, which gets away with it like, better than most, and still kind of bothered me. That was a child main character, so I just don't like kids and stories in general. So I'm never gonna have it in the stories at least. Kids in real life are fine. I mean, everybody should get married and have kids as long as they're not mentally screwed up. But in terms of stories, I kind of rather than just be in the background, seen and not heard.
I mean, it's the fact that it looks like you're pulling it off is pretty great. Um, and
Yes.
it's more important. Like, how do I want to put it? It's advertising. Like, I made a parody
Yeah,
of an isekai light novel that I sent you, called
yeah,
"I'm in
yeah,
another world with a harem, but I'm gay, so it sucks," or something like that. It's some
yeah,
variation
yeah.
of it. And so for the quote unquote harem, I have a big titty witch, a 12-year-old girl, a daughter of a barbarian warlord, and a knight who I imply serves Satan himself. But they have this whole like vague Christian cosmology to it because Satan hasn't heard an
No,
original guitar riff in his life. Um, it's like medieval times,
the
but they.
best the best harem parody is the anti-harem of Konosuba.
I was gonna say that there's another harem in my story. It's the boy king, the assassin, the aforementioned barbarian warlord, and the thief lord. But they're not in agreement that they're in any sort of harem yet at all.
They're in denial.
But
They're totally in a harem, but none of them want to admit it.
he'll change their minds. Don't you worry about it. If I could be bothered to write another story with it.
And they're all arguing over who's the main character of the harem.
No. Uh, You've read that story. Uh,
I did, yes. I just think that would be funny.
anyway, no, it's important. It's marketing. It's more than that.
Yeah, it definitely
Um,
is.
just like what we're doing here. Now we're talking about your story. We're riffing on it. We're seeing about it. We're probing what your influences are, because it's very important for us to know, where
Yeah,
stories come from. Like, I know Brian Niemeyer is a big one for, writing for profit, which I will never go on record as saying I do not want to profit from my books or writing projects. But the thing
yeah,
is that if you're just pumping out, you know, soulless work after soulless work, that doesn't create a legacy people can be proud of. It's like, well, what'd
yeah.
you
And it
do?
becomes it becomes like another job that you kind of another soulless job you end up doing. I mean, it's no different from like an office job at that point.
Yep.
So
I mean, it's more interesting than TPS reports,
yes,
and
but you
counting
still
candy bars and.
yeah, but it still becomes like not it becomes less fun because you're not enjoying what you're doing at that point. You're just writing like churning out like
Mm-hmm.
identical stories forever. Like, but
Yep.
obviously you
Hmm.
can still try and find another niche or something where you could make an inroad into a market and do well. And I mean, that's part of what I'm trying to do with this. I mean, obviously, also it's a cheaper series for me to produce, so it's also that too. It's more affordable for me to make, and obviously, I think easier to sell. I mean, it looks like it is so far based on how this Kickstarter has been going. And there's more art involved in all that. And obviously, also, I think people who are fans of anime style things are more likely to be interested in checking out something new than, say, Star Wars fans are, which I learned the hard way are not interested in that. Even as much as they complain about Star Wars, they don't care
Yep.
about anything new. So they're kind of a worthless audience to try and appeal to,
Yeah.
with some exceptions, but not enough to really build something big off of.
Yeah, and that frustrates me quite a bit because it's like I
Yeah,
would like to write, awesome space opera with riding phoenixes and vague corporate metaphors where, blah blah blah, where McDonald's has a death core and stuff like that. I wish I could do stuff like that and then have the Star Wars fans be like, "Of course, this is exactly what we're looking for. It's too awesome not to read." But it's like, no. Like it's a Gen Y problem. It's a thing like that, but it's like, you know, I don't know.
yeah. No, I've had more success recently. I'm trying to do Amazon ads. 'Cause I had some stimulus money. I wanted to just try to use some of that on advertising to just try and figure out some things that work better. And the clicks that I got on my ads recently, like, um, were mostly from tags involving David Weber books. So I think those fans are actually more worthwhile reaching out to with new
Yep.
space opera because I guess they're more inclined because they're not wedded to one franchise like big brand, so they're more open to trying something new if it's even reasonably similar to what they like. So
Hmm.
It's yeah, I can agree with that. Especially since like I've heard mostly horror stories from things like Amazon ads, and I know from my own personal experience with Facebook ads, they basically just recycle through the same fans over and over and over again. Um, which
yeah, it's
is
kind of a crapshoot, like trying to make any to make. I mean, some authors manage it. I don't know how they do it. I think the ads I've done recently have turned like a very marginal profit just because I got a couple people who like on Kindle Unlimited read through like half the series in like a week. So that was enough page reads to kind of pay for the ad because that like I set the bids low enough. I'm not getting that many clicks because if the bids are too high, I'm going to be bidding when I'm getting too many clicks and not enough sales. It's because it's not going to add up well. So like my best ads have been like small and very marginally profitable, but I know there are ways to make it work. It's just I'm trying to figure that out, and it's not easy.
right.
So I'm trying to look at more ways. Actually, I actually did run for a couple of days on YouTube an ad because I made a trailer for this Kickstarter. So I did actually run like through Google Ads because you can do that with YouTube now. But it's all owned by Google. I
Mm-hmm.
did actually run a video ad on some anime channels. I don't know how many. I think it got like maybe like I think like two or 3,000, 4,000 impressions, and
Yeah.
like I think like 500 views over like the course of 4 days. And I can't tell if I got me any backers or not because it isn't. This chart doesn't track clicks from YouTube. I don't think it is called as counted as like off site. We don't know, so I can't tell if it was worth it or not. But like they actually got a lot more. The ad got a lot more views than I expected it would.
Yeah.
So I might could try to get with my other books. Like I mean, because you could target them actually really well on like specific channels that are relevant to what you write. So like, I might even try with my space opera to just try targeting some of these Star Wars channels because you never know. A couple of people who are watching that channel might see it and want to click on it or something and read it. Like the the cost per click is actually not very high for the YouTube ad. You just need a video, obviously, for that to work.
Right.
So then I might try more because that seems a little bit better because again, it's a way to get it in front of the right people more often because you really could target it very specifically at channels and obviously at topics also. So
I get you.
so I'm gonna try. Yeah, I'm gonna try and keep tabs on like I paused the ad I was running now because I'm not sure if it was doing much. I mean, it might have been, but I can't tell. So I might maybe resume it again in maybe another week or so to let it run for 3 days again and see if I could figure out if it's actually worth it. But I think it's worth trying just because it's something different and it's less and it's not Amazon. Like
Yeah.
so,
And it's like, I'm not gonna lie to you, dude. I have a ad block. Most of the people I know have ad blocks. There's not much.
that's why. Yeah, that's why I was surprised it got as many views as it did. Because a
I
view,
know.
according to the ad, I think it calculates if you had to watch at least 30 seconds of the video. So I mean, I got 500 of them in 4 days with setting a $5 daily limit on ad spend. So I mean, it really isn't. I didn't spend that much, and now it's more views than I expected, to be honest. So I mean, I guess I mean these also I was targeting pretty big channels to get like hundreds of thousands of views. So obviously there's enough people there who would not be using ad blocks and be willing to actually click on something or watch a video.
Mm-hmm.
So so like I said, I'm going to be experimenting with it and hopefully be able to get some data that I could actually make use of. That's really the hard part, trying to get useful data out of it to then adjust and then move forward. Because that's really where you want to figure out what ads work, what ads don't work, and then go from there to build it up. But it's very hard to manage.
Yep. Admittedly, ads are one of those things where I'm just not really all where I should be with them.
Yeah,
Just because it's like, I see a lot of failures, and I'm just not sure how to do it. I might try something with Pinkerton's Ghosts, uh, but it's also like, the channels that I want to do it on also do other things as well. So it's like, I don't know what the balance is, but if you can set like a $10, $5 limit, I'm willing to risk it. There's
yeah,
also
yeah.
like,
You data limits. So I mean, you could limit how much you're going to spend on it, and obviously then that lets you more easily check every day to see how it's performing to then decide if you want to continue it or not. And then before you spend out of nowhere a couple $100s, it's like where did the money go?
give me my ad revenue, YouTube. No, for you are right wing. No, YouTube.
Yeah.
Uh, apparently the audio is quiet. What?
Is it?
What? No, it shouldn't be. Well, we've been talking for an hour and a half. Uh,
Yeah.
I know that
Yeah, I
it's,
probably should. Yeah,
yeah.
I probably should go to sleep soon. Not that I have anywhere to be tomorrow, of course, because the country is they actually just shut down the airport for a week now, so no one can even leave the country anymore. So we'll come in. So there's literally nothing to do outside, but health-wise, it's probably still better to sleep at normal hours.
It's too late now. You should just stay up and then try to stay awake as long as you can. Reset your clock.
Yeah,
That's what I've been doing. I've been like forcing
yeah,
myself to just go to bed, and I'm like sitting there reading or something, and it's like this isn't helping me, but I still wake up earlier.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yep. Any final words for us?
No, well, thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun to chat about my Kickstarter and about isekai and other light novel stuff in general, because there's a lot to talk about, both good and bad about the topic. And yeah, then for anybody watching, check out the Kickstarter for Light Unto Another World. We're potentially on pace to fund within a week, and if we do fund within a week, everybody gets a free bonus short story exclusive to Kickstarter backers. So there'll be no extra cost, and it'll be from the point of view of one of the supporting characters. So it'll be a nice addition. I think that'd be pretty fun for me to write, actually. But so we have a couple days left to hit that goal, and yeah, if you like fun fantasy adventure, if you like isekai in concept, but are kind of frustrated with a lot of what the mainstream is right now, you probably like this because try and make it a fun story and get away from a lot of the problems that the genre has, because I'm just focusing on making it a fun story and interesting characters first, which really you should always be doing with your stories, whatever genre they're in.
Yep.
And yeah, and obviously also the better the Kickstarter does, the more bonuses will be. I have stretch goals all the way up to $10,000, and at which point I will commission like a lack of a better term, I guess, a pilot for a manga adaptation, which would be really fun to do actually, because if I did that, I'd be able to expand the story a lot, because the story's written in first person, because it just fit a lot better with the pacing and getting information across for the character. But obviously, from a comic, the adaptation, you could it's much easier to spend time away from the main character and expand the story that way. And I have a bunch of ideas how that would actually work, and it'd be really fun, I think. So
Mm-hmm.
whether this Kickstarter gets it started or not, I definitely hope to do that in the future, because it would really be a fun project. And I think it would enhance the story as opposed to just being a straight adaptation. I think is what you want from adapting anything to another medium. Is you want to build on what you had before, and not just copy paste it into a new format. So, so check out the
Awesome.
Kickstarter, and obviously, if you know anybody might be interested in it, be sure to share it with them, because the hardest part of any Kickstarter is getting it in front of enough people who are interested. Because there are people out there, just getting them to see it is the hard part. Kickstarter doesn't help because they only promote the biggest campaigns, and even though it's doing well, it's nowhere near the biggest campaign going on right now. So in the end, got one backer from recommended on Kickstarter, which is a record for me. So yeah, you need to share it by word of mouth. That's the only way to get it anywhere at this point, or the only way to get anything creative anywhere, really. So
Yep.
apart from
That's
backing, sharing is very
right. That's what we're doing here. I do have a question. Is there a
important.
spider waifu in there?
No, there isn't. Unfortunately, I can't put literally everyone
0 out of
in.
10. Utter garbage. No. All right. Anthony, what do you got for us?
um, I will keep an eye out on your book and on the only new isekai worth watching this season, Spider Isekai.
See,
Yeah, I'll check that out at some point. We're watching too many shows at once right now, so maybe once something finishes, I'll be able to
There's a
check out some
ridiculous
other
amount
ones.
new isekai out this season, mind you. Log Horizon's also airing. But
this is probably one of the best seasons on record. I know Skate the Infinity is just tickling me pink every week. Um, it's
I still need
fantastic.
to see episode 2.
Oh, it's great. It's good. It's got its own appeal. All right. Yakov,
All right, well, yeah.
it's
Thanks
it,
again.
it's another pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, have a good rest of your day.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
Bye.